Dear viewers and listeners of Smart24 TV, we are still your greatest partner in this driving business, and we want to drive business in the cities and all whatever is affecting us, our desire and our aspiration through this talk show as we analyze economic policies, it's to see it coming to the end. And as we come to the end of our talk show, we have some minutes to go through what we do appeal to the policy makers that can be taken on. We continue to admire some countries, including the neighborhood here, Kenya, as we are talking about the infrastructure development, where, for instance, the issue of management of their city all the way to Nairobi, you are no longer suffering with the traffic jam. And all this is just simply solved by flyover. You were there in Nairobi and you enjoyed all that drive. You are not suffering with jam. By the time you are going to office, you are not exhausted and you're able to do work. The other time when I was discussing this subject matter 3-4 months ago, we were able to discover a number of $1 billion we lose because of not doing business at the right time. And another concern I would like to raise before us, my dear guests, our dear guests, is to know that when the financing of our city management is not effective, especially to do the constructions we are talking about, then that means we cannot see we cannot achieve the targets of economic growth. Honorable, straight to you, this matter is still worrying our citizens and the people you represent. You are a MP for Uganda, yes. Where we have it was a report that we discovered last week, 25 trillion, which is the debt Uganda is servicing, but it's not utilized for some quite years ago. And these cities we are talking about, they need extension of power. Load shedding has been the order of the day. Should we remain in this cycle? Who is fighting us within our own country and delaying development?
Are you saying the 25 trillion has not been the money that was borrowed?
It was borrowed. It has not been used. We have stalling projects, including, like as you talk about the infrastructure, improvement of infrastructure in the city to improve management is not complete, and other stalling projects. Yet there was a borrowing of 25 trillion some years ago, and this money we are paying interest over it, and all of us were concerned. We are not criticizing, but we are concerned. This is abnormal.
Yes, well, I want to agree with you that it's not an okay practice that huge sums of money, 25 trillion, is borrowed and not utilized, or the output is not seen. But in this very good country, we have the Office of the Auditor General, which Parliament gives mandate to audit all these activities and then give a report, which report then, as members of Parliament, we then deliberate on the same, on the floor. I believe that if this is factual, it will appear on the next Auditor General's report, and as Parliament, I believe it is our task to start from there. However, even as a whistleblower, this has been there, it's not whistleblowing, but the question should be that the people who are tasked with these huge projects should be held accountable. As long as the time frame has passed, they should explain. One thing that is worth noting is that the last 2.5 years or 3, world over, has been years of difficulties because of COVID. So world over, countries borrowed money for projects. Right here, even our parliamentary extension, that work started, I think 3 years ago or 4. The expectation was that by this time, perhaps it would be nearing completion. But because of the difficulties that came with COVID, it is within understandable limit paradigm that some activities have stalled. But that does not mean that funds appropriated for these projects should not be accounted for. As leaders, we must hold fellow leaders accountable. That if the taxpayers' money, which is used to pay these trillions of money, must be value for service for an ordinary person, for citizens of this country to benefit from the same. So, in summary, I want to agree with you that it is not a good practice, but the practice of borrowing and utilizing money, it is standard practice world over. If you go to Kenya, actually the report is that their corruption level is maybe a parent or grandfather to what happens here. But that does not mean we should now fold our hands and relax. Okay. We must ensure that every penny accounted, budgeted for, must serve the purpose that the citizens of this country are looking forward to.
Thank you. I'll be coming back to you and maybe go through the recommendation to see how the new proposed reforms, as we discussed on our platform, can favor our graduate youth, our unemployed youth, and the struggling small-scale entrepreneurs to be able to manage business in a city of which it needs to have an environment that favors, especially for the disadvantaged who are still picking up. Because those who are today great businessmen, who don't want always to hear the great businessmen, Mukwano, Wavamuno. My desire, and I believe you are part of my school of thought, is that the next, whether 5 years or 10 years, we should see many harms rising.
Yes.
Not only to hear one harm and harm becomes harm everywhere, and someone begin to wonder how did the harm manage.
The next billionaire businessmen should be us.
So we want many, and that's when our GDP will be better.
That's true.
The other time I remember you applauding very much sports, the area of sports industry and so forth. Something needs to be done. As we come to you, Dr. Doreen, Dr. Doreen Akunda, we continue to aspire for the best for this country, but a lot is desirable to be done. The existence of cities continue to struggle, even for matters related with road shading. What do you think is a mismatch, and it's a discomfort indeed, where our citizens are suffering with unsubsidized services, which are social services, electricity, water, and so forth? Please kindly give us your technical advice in such matters.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Joseph, once again. Yeah, but before I come to that, about what Honorable Nint said, we need to first appreciate the taxation system of Nairobi or of Kenya. Yeah, it's in a sense that I must say that Kenya is known that it has been, like the citizens have been very loyal to the taxation system, right? It's in a sense that I remember way back when I had just gone to China in 2015, my Kenyan friends used to tell me how they are being taxed of the bank accounts they have. I don't know when that will ever happen in Uganda. So you realize that
they are being done what?
They were taxed for having
a
dormant bank accounts.
If you have a dormant bank account, you are supposed to close.
So they were always worried that however much years they take to go back to Kenya, they still have to pay the taxes for that. Yeah, and then the other thing is that Kenyans honestly are shrewd when it comes to transparency and accountability.
But before you go on that, because you talked about the taxation now on the services we acquire from some service providers, I don't want to leave this one untouched, especially the continuous suffering on the service of access to technology, especially internet, to find that when you don't pay here on this phone, and our youth who have got jobs from here, do business here, they are being affected. And you also look at the element of where, double taxation. You pay, you send money on mobile, and again they tax on it. Then when you are withdrawing, there is again a tax.
Yeah.
All those issues, they are issues I would like you to maybe look into.
Yeah, speaking of those many taxations that we tend to go through as we do these transactions on our mobiles, honestly, one thing, I remember there's a time it was tabled in Parliament, and when they were removing the OTT tax. So we were very happy. I remember there's a time I didn't know that I was supposed to pay, is it OTT, to access internet. I had to look for someone to link me to the customer care of MTN to make sure that my internet works. But at the back of my mind, I had paid like OTT for 3 months, and it became a tug over. I almost, that time as upcountry, I almost just came to Kampala to complain to MTN because of internet. But again, levying all these taxes on these transactions that we make, even the income that we are earning in respective places where we're working in, it's really unfair. When you look at these other developed countries, yes, I know they've already made it maybe, or they're already up there, but when you start levying taxes on these other small businesses that we tend to engage in, it's draining to the local citizens.
Yes, then we look at your last word on public administration reforms.
Yes.
That can give us effective management of these cities, not forgetting the challenge I've talked about, where the management of the delivery of these social services, especially failure to subsidize the key services. You're talking about water, you're talking about electricity. Kindly give us your last recommendation, this discourse, and we'll move forward. Okay,
before I give that last discourse, we need also to first look at the world's best taxation policies. When you take a look at countries like Estonia, Latvia, New Zealand, Switzerland, Lithuania, Czech Republic, Sweden, Australia, Norway, there are many others. When you look at how they are doing this, their taxation system, it's in a way that to them, the legal entities do not actually pay income tax on the retained earnings. So this means that the companies are allowed to instead reinvest the money that they would have paid for taxation, right? Yeah, I'm not saying that we can also do that here in Uganda, because those countries are already there.
So what do you advise us?
So for us in Uganda, I would still say that these taxes need to still be subsidized in a way that the local person is not going to feel pressed. When you look at these taxes that we tend to face when we are doing these transactions on mobile money, when we are, for every other thing, the tax is still a lot for the local person. The other time when I was using the express highway, that taxation of paying 5,000, it's really a lot for a local person.
5,000 if you
5,000.
If you drive on express.
On express, I understand.
That is one route, one way.
Yeah, I understand the fuel prices are up there, but again, the government at this point when the fuel prices are hiking every now and then, they should at least have subsidized it. So that the local person is not pressed.
Like 1,000 at least.
At least 1,000. Remember, again, you have to pay for the ticket when you're coming from the airport, I think like 2,000. So it's really not proper for the local person. So you realize still, the local person is going to keep pressed. And then you find the local person still doesn't have any savings at all. These people that are engaged in business with these other small enterprises or startup businesses, you find that the little money they would have as savings, maybe as profits or something, you find that that money is still paid in these other taxes that are too much for them.
Your final key recommendation reform?
Yes, okay, thank you.
Yes, in 1 minute.
Yeah, but yet you find that people like our honorables, maybe they are not even pressed at all. People that are doing so well in business are not pressed at all. And then the fact that the local taxes are just flat, regardless of your position or regardless of the business you're doing, it still keeps unfair. So one thing the government can look at is trying to maybe levy taxes for people depending on their classes or their levels.
The incomes.
Yes, the incomes.
That's what you recommend.
Yes, but because honestly, I cannot pay the same tax as my honorable here. It's really pressing. First of all, I don't know if I'll ever earn your salary, or maybe other people that are coming up. But you find that we are still paying the same tax. It's really unfair. So the government maybe can try to see how it can reforms. Yeah, the taxes.
The taxation policy.
Yes, the taxation policies and for the local person to also have some money on him or her.
Well, please, the government, you are listening, and this is substantially, well said by a technocrat from the academia point of view. Come up with the reforms that will favor, that will bridge the gap of inequalities, and she had all along been very much interested into this, where you said even the wage bill that should not be considered at the same level, but should be depending upon how different, urban areas, how much you earn, and compared to the standard of living. Exactly. And I think that's something. Why has it delayed, Honorable? The wage bill and also
the minimum wage bill.
The minimum wage bill.
Of course, it's a hard paper. The minimum wage bill. If you look at the...
You have 3 minutes to go, we finish.
Okay, if you look at the population, the number of people who are in need for jobs, it's overwhelming. In such a society, you might not comfortably have a minimum wage bill. However, we should be strict on avoiding overexploitation of our workers, of our sport.
Come again, on a bit irritated, I'm sorry.
In an economy like ours, where 70%, 80% of graduates cannot find jobs, where 80% cannot access finance, money, funds to finance their projects, you might not be at liberty to seal that minimum wage bill. What is key is to control over exploitation of our human resource, and support the young people who are engaged in entrepreneurship, because they know here we are exploited. Give them opportunities, give them funds. Why do we rely on foreigners who get loans from their country? Because we are told, like, some foreigners come here with a loan at an interest of 2%. So they come here with that money, which is almost free. Then you give them waivers, free land, tax exemption, and they start from profit. Then the money they get, they also repatriate back. They don't even support this economy. That is where we should pick up from and say, government, these are our own citizens. Most of them, some of them are graduates. They have skills. If skill is lacking, can we create training centers to improve on their skills? Even those who have not managed to go to school, we have experts here. You go downtown, we have people who never...
Let me come to Honorable. I am appreciating the part of the version you're bringing, which is defending the interests of citizens. But for purpose of promoting social justice, why I was very keen to your submission, I do believe in developing economies, the element or the subject matter of minimum wage bill is very important. I know you've been submitting people-rated, opinions, but in this matter, the delay of the minimum wage bill seems to have caused much more exploitation, both by the local persons here and those who are coming as foreigners, especially those who are operating businesses, especially which is in this city. You find that someone, as you talked about, a graduate who is just starting up to do some small job or with someone, whether at a petrol station, but is only doing what? Is only being paid 100,000.
Well,
yes.
That is what now for me falls under.
And finally make recommendation.
That is for me what falls under exploitation. This, because I have been to Dubai and I've been to developed countries. You interact with them, our people who go there, and you realize when someone is living here, they tell them you're going to earn 2 million. When they are there, they earn 600,000. When cost of living is abnormal. Me, I would think, in as much as we don't have that ceiling on minimum wage, it can also be a spark for our people to shun these factories that exploit them and go entrepreneur. So we should only push government so that incentives given to foreigners periodically should be given to our local people.
Thank you so much. Say your last word to the viewers as we end our talk show.
I want to salute fellow citizens and the management of this station. That thank you for creating time, Smart 24, to serve the aspiration of our country. It is through this that we need to preach to our people, tell them about what government must do, and tell them about their rights so that they hold their leaders accountable, so that they can make informed decision, not just voting on tension.
Thank you so
And
much.
I salute you for
I
this.
appreciate and I do believe that we have a take-home from you where you have promised that there will be a discussion even before Parliament which will be able to fight for those who are new starters in business, micro, small-scale entrepreneurs,